One of the most craziest takes I've heard in a while is the fact that Ryan Day should be on the hot seat. Now, Ryan Day has won multiple 10 plus, really 11 plus seasons in a row at The Ohio State University. A lot of Ohio State fans are kind of sick of what's similarly going on every single year, in which they can't win the big games. Right now, Ryan Day 2-6 all time versus top five teams. Those two wins, one of which was Clemson back in 2020 when Ohio State went to the college football playoff, beat Clemson in the bowl game, and then played Alabama in the national championship. So Ryan Day just one all-time playoff win coming during COVID, a season in which a lot of people were upset that Ohio State made it. Wasn't their fault. COVID was a weird season, and I think everyone should have thought Ohio State was a top three team that season, regardless of how many games were played. But unfortunately, once again, Ohio State went down this past weekend to the Oregon Ducks on the road in a hostile environment. Definitely a top 10 place to play. And respectively, Oregon was a legitimate top five team. And Ohio State still is a top five team, at least for the time being. Now coming up, they do play Penn State. Now, I'm going to throw out some records here for you. Ryan Day currently 53-8. Zero of those losses, by the way, were to unranked teams. 14-8 versus top 15 teams. I made a video yesterday. This is where speculation and reality versus what's being said, and in which he can't win big games. Well, he's 14-8 versus top 15 teams. That's a really dang good record. 2-6 though versus top five, and just 1-3 versus Michigan. How about Kirby Smart in his first 5 years? 51-14 at Georgia. I'm a Georgia fan. 12-10 versus top 15 teams. That's a worse record than Ryan Day. 2-4 versus top five, but 0-3 versus Alabama. We're comparing Alabama to Michigan. Obviously, Alabama was probably a better program than Michigan was, especially those first 5 years of Kirby Smart with Nick Saban at helm there, as well as Ryan Day. They should have played Michigan in 2020. They would have beaten them. So Ohio State fans know that. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that, but Kirby Smart was also viewed as a coach that couldn't win these big games, couldn't win a national title, and then look what he's done for Georgia since the 2021 season, winning a national title in 2021, going 14-1, then 15-0, winning second in a row national title, and having one of the biggest national title wins. In fact, I think it is the biggest in the history of college football, 65-7 over TCU, who did beat Michigan, who also beat you. So, and then last year, 13-1, Orange Bowl champion, 63-3, the biggest win in bowl game history happened to be in a New Year's Six Bowl, 63-3 over Florida State. This year, already one loss. But still, Kirby Smart has got it done and won 2 straight national titles, looking for his third, hopefully relatively soon. Ryan Day, on the other hand, this is a make-or-break season for Ohio State. Ohio State fans knew it. I knew it. Everyone knew it. Came in as a top 3 team preseason. I thought they should have been number 1 personally with that roster. I've been saying this even in the preseason. Ohio State has the best roster in college football. I don't really care what the metrics or the recruiting average say. Top to bottom, Ohio State's roster, I would put it up over anybody's in the country, including my Georgia Bulldogs, especially on that defensive line and DB core. Way better at Ohio State than Georgia. And look at the weapons at wide receiver, running back even as well. Ohio State's got it all. There's not really a position group at Ohio State that doesn't have enough talent to win a national title. And this is where we come in, and a lot of the fans specifically are kind of done with Ryan Day simply because of his record against the top 5 teams. It's 2-6. Here's the thing. Yeah, he inherited a great situation, probably the best situation in college football. As Urban Meyer stepped away, Ryan Day comes in with an elite roster, one of the best two in college football that season, 2019. And you know what he does? He dominates the Big Ten, doesn't lose a game, goes on to the playoff, and with some controversy against Clemson, probably should have won that game. It is what it is. If you're an Ohio State fan, you know that you think you got screwed over in that game. You can't kick field goals in the red zone, but there were some questionable calls in which that was his first loss, then turned it around in 2020. Weird season. We didn't know that we were going to get college football. And then once again, Ohio State dominates the Big Ten. Not really any games were in doubt. I know they had a close one against Indiana, but shout out Tom Allen. He had a really good season that year, I guess. But then Ohio State loses the national title. Those two losses coming into playoffs, for me, that's not a big deal, especially for a first 2-year head coach. He was a coordinator at Ohio State. But again, Ohio State fans, you're expecting national title at least once every 3 seasons. It really feels like. And then the third season, 2021, in my opinion, this Ohio State team was definitely good enough to make it to a college football playoff. They had the roster talent. They had one of the best rosters in college football. Kind of a theme every single year. Loses at home to Oregon, loses at Michigan, and clearly outside looking in on the playoff. 10-2 would never get you in a 4-team playoff in an at-large situation. But the way that they lost those games just got absolutely demoralized on the line of scrimmage. Even back the game before Oregon, Minnesota, Ibrahim was able to run for, I believe, 170 yards in 3 quarters before he got injured. And then Ryan Day went and got Jim Knowles, who is a very good defensive mind. And, kind of similarly, the same things were going on as we talked about yesterday. In Ohio State's past 5 losses, they were outscored 69-15 in the fourth quarter, 0 punts in all 5 of those games. So now it's time for the big question: is Ryan Day on the hot seat? Me personally, I think that's a ridiculous statement. He's only lost 8 total games thus far into his 5th year at Ohio State. So 8 games in 5.5 seasons, that's elite. I know he wasn't able to get you that national title just yet, but there's still a lot of football to be played this season. And a lot of Ohio State fans are done. They're tired of the same old, same old. They believe that he's peaked. And a lot of other people believe that Ryan Day has peaked. That's the worst part about this whole situation, is when you're coaching an elite program and when fans are already against you because they're saying you peaked, that's when the hot seat does come into play. Again, I think it's a ridiculous statement as of right now. His worst season at Ohio State, you could make a case it was last year, in which that team should never have lost to Missouri, but they should have been a playoff team. They had way too much talent to not be in the playoffs. There's a lot of teams that were left out that probably should have been playoff teams. Last year was the first season we could have desperately needed the 12-team playoff, but you could say last year was Ryan Day's worst coaching job. Look at that offense. The offense was a giant letdown, and then went 11-2, missed out on the playoffs yet again. Look, Ohio State fans, I don't think Ryan Day has peaked yet. We'll see coming up. We'll see how Ohio State finishes, how they respond. This is the second time really that Ryan Day has an early season loss. He lost both times in which they lost to Oregon, which is interesting to say the least. First time was week 2 at home. They bounced back though and went on a good winning streak. I think they won 7 in a row before losing to Michigan, or 8 in a row before losing to Michigan, including beating Penn State. Penn State's going to be a tough game. I don't think Ohio State's going to walk over Penn State like a lot of people think. Penn State's a really good team. In fact, Penn State's offense and quarterback situation is probably the best it's been since maybe even Hackenberg, or it might even be better than Hackenberg. In fact, I think Drew Aller is a better quarterback than Hackenberg. And a lot of people get upset at me for saying that. But Penn State's offense is a lot better than where a lot of people thought they would be. They're 6-0, by the way, too. Two really solid road wins at West Virginia. That's a good road win. I understand it's not a insanely tough place to play, but that's a borderline top 25 place to play. And at Southern Cal, not really home field advantage. I don't get really Southern Cal fans. They don't really show out when they need to, and they really needed them last week. I think the stadium was like 75% capacity, and how many Penn State fans were there? So that's Southern Cal for you. But two solid road wins and then a home win against Illinois, who does play Michigan this week. And of course you play Michigan at the end of the year. Listen, Michigan's a bad team. They have a terrible offense. And for whatever reason, this is a shocker to me, their defense just isn't any good either. Their defense is 110th in pass defense. It's not like they're getting ran over. I think they're in the top 50s for total defense, but it's just not any good. Because of their secondary problems, which is crazy for me to say because Michigan's talent at DB, you got to put that, I could put that up against almost anybody in college football, exception of Ohio State, maybe Texas. But other than that, the talent is there, especially with the best corner in Notre Dame. But the talent is there, especially with Will Johnson. I know he's been injured, but still. That looks like an easier game for the Buckeyes, but this schedule is starting to heat up. And you play a very physical Nebraska team, not this weekend, but next weekend, coming up at Penn State. You also have to play Indiana. Watch out for Indiana. Indiana's that sleeper team. I think they can compete with Ohio State for at least 3 quarters there, especially with Roque in that offense. Coach C, right now, in my opinion, hands down, coach of the year in college football. But it would take an all-time coaching mishap on Ryan Day for them to lose. I'm not saying Indiana's going to win. It's at Ohio State. Ohio State should win. But yeah, it's going to be a tougher ending for Ohio State and Ryan Day. I personally don't think he should be in the hot seat because what he's done for Ohio State, I know he hasn't gotten it done yet. We have to finish out this season, but let's say things start to unhinge themselves. You do lose at Penn State. It's hard for me to see any other loss. 10-2 will 1,000% get Ohio State into the college football playoff as an 8, 9, 10 seed. Let's say that happens, and then you lose your playoff game to whoever, probably playing an SEC team, the 3rd or 4th best team in the SEC. Oh, by the way, Ryan Day 0-3 against the SEC. That would make him 0-4. Then I think you could definitely have a case for him, you saying he peaked and he would be on the hot seat. But something short of that, I don't necessarily think so. I think Ryan Day will be back next year. And this Ohio State team, if you're looking at it, they're going to have to go heavy in the portal. They are going to lose quite a bit from this team. This was an all-in season for Ryan Day in the Ohio State Buckeyes. But I still don't think Ryan Day should be on the hot seat. You guys let me know what you guys think. Like I said, unless things go wrong in these last few weeks of college football, at worst, Ohio State's going 10-2. I just don't see another loss on this schedule. Like I said, it is tough. Nebraska, they're a physical team. Maybe they can hang with you a little bit. I don't know if they have the offense, especially a true freshman quarterback. Then you do have at Penn State, I do believe is right after that. And then Indiana, you play somebody, again, I probably should have the schedule up there for you. Not really a good team after that. Then Indiana, and then Michigan. That last 5-game stretch is very tough for Ohio State, or actually the last 6-game stretch there. But Ohio State should be favored in every one of those games. So you guys let me know what you guys think, if Ryan Day should be on the hot seat or not. I personally say no, but I know a lot of Ohio State fans disagree with me. They are saying he peaked. They need to go in a different direction. And if you think that, who's going to be Ohio State's next coach? Again, I think that's a very sensitive thing to say, especially for right now. I compared him to Kirby Smart. Oh, Ryan Day, has a better record than Kirby Smart in the similar time span. So you guys let me know what you guys think. I personally say no, but do you think Ryan Day is on the hot seat? You're listening to the Ohio State Football Channel at the voice of college football.